is up, everybody? Welcome to an episode of I Try to Build a PC. As you can see, it turned out somewhat successful because, in fact, very successful because it's currently running itself. I had to shoot this whole intro sequence after the fact because apparently the camera wasn't in focus for the previous one. So I've been hyping this video up for quite some time actually, so it's good that I can finally say that it's actually been built, and you know what? It's pretty much a powerhouse, but let's get to the process of me getting it built. So a bit of backstory on this machine. So originally this was given to us by our neighbors So this thing originally was a bit of a Windows XP powerhouse. It had an AMD Athlon 64, 4 gigs of RAM. I think it originally had a half terabyte hard drive in it, but we had to return that to the neighbors because it had some data on it. But it also had like a GeForce 9600, I think it was. We would eventually put it to a 9600, that's all I know. At one point it was a 6800 as well, so it might have been that. And it was all being powered off of the 500 watt power supply that came with the case, which is actually a Apevia Explorer from 2006. Basically what had happened is that they'd soldered case fans to the power supply. I would eventually get rid of that power supply because A, it had bulging capacitors, and B, but because it was made in 2006, it had a 4-pin CPU power connector on it, which was no good, especially for today's motherboards that use 8-pin CPU power. And also there were other factors, like the fact that it was non-modular. It had a bunch of issues with it. But what really did the old machine in was that the RAM started having issues, the BIOS wouldn't pick up on a few things, the motherboard was going through the CMOS batteries, you know, the typical stuff. So my new solution? Build a new machine. So, without further ado, let's look at what's powering this current version. So, for our CPU, we have an Intel Core i3-10100. I was originally going to go AMD, but AMD's prices were not really that good at this time because these things are at our high demand, you know. Our RAM, we have 16 gigabytes worth of ADATA Spectrix D41. This is the 2x16 version and runs at 3200 megahertz, being run by an MSI B460 Pro VDH Wi-Fi. I know the name doesn't roll off the tongue, and I know it's a Wi-Fi motherboard. Wi-Fi motherboards, I get it, aren't really the most useful things. I merely got it because that was the only one I could really find that would come in an appropriate time. It still took a week to get here, though. That would be useful from the Wi-Fi side of it is the fact that it has Bluetooth, and I find myself using Bluetooth an awful lot, but a lot of people don't really use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi with desktop PCs because you don't really need it, especially if you're going to do gaming. Gaming, it doesn't need that. Ethernet is good enough, so yeah. Storage, we are using an SSD this time, which in this case is the Team Group T-Create 1 terabyte SSD. It's in their T-Create series, so it's designed for content creators like myself. For our power supply, we are using a Corsair CX550F RGB, which is a really good power supply, but it's a bit overpower for this machine, especially because we don't have the discrete GPU on it. But I mainly got it because I wanted a modular one that I could hopefully get some wire management done, which I couldn't do anyway because unfortunately, being the case was designed in 2006, there wasn't enough room to really stash the wires for the cable management aspect. So unfortunately, all the end result shots are gonna make it look very messy and stuff, but I guess that's the kind of somewhat charm of these kinds of machines. But yeah, let's get into the footage of me trying to build it. Alright, so a little bit of a look at our bench here, our temporary bench that I have set up. So here we have our motherboard. We're going to work on the CPU first because that's kind of A, the hardest part, and B, we need to know how to make room for the RAM. Also, I have an ESD band, got it on kind of tight, and there is a connection to actual ground from my power supply. It's not like that last video that I did where it was grounded to a mic stand. So yeah, let's get right into getting that fan on. Now let us not forget about our little screwdriver here. I quickly started working with the CPU, which was kind of easy to put in. Applied a bit of thermal paste. Tried to put in the CPU cooler that I had bought for it that had full RGB on it. But that didn't work out as it didn't have, one of the brackets was a bit wrong. Eventually I found out that the issue was that I had actually put one of the wrong brackets on, so I actually got it fixed up, and yeah, now we've got that running. And then I got some RAM built into it, and then I got the SSD on it. The SSD already had a copy of Lubuntu on it, so I didn't need to worry about installing anything. Now the motherboard did not have any power buttons on itself, so I had to plug it into the case in order to get it to work, so it was a bit of a thing that I wasn't really expecting. But you know what? It actually turned out that it actually worked. I then attempted a bit of cable management with it, but that didn't really go to plan, as because this case was built in 2006, it couldn't let that be a thing. Alright, so the machine had been built, and it had been tested, and it had worked. So, cut to the test footage. Before we do that, let's take a bit of a look at the RGB systems on it. So anyways, the machine itself, absolute beast. I've been trying to play a few games on it, a few of the lower level games that are easy to run. I did play a bit of Minecraft on it, and it actually ran really well. It ran at 60 FPS, but I think that was a limitation of the monitor, because my monitor selection, as you can kind of see, is the typical thrift shop special, so I was using a VGA monitor, so I think the CPU's integrated graphics was frame limiting itself because of that, or the fact that CPU graphics drivers for CPUs like the one I have don't work for Linux and are mostly designed for Windows and sometimes Mac because it's an Intel CPU. The experience of doing video editing on it though is really solid. I'm going to post a video in the future about video editing on a machine like this and how it actually happens and how the process is kind of similar to many others. But yeah. So yeah, that was it for today's video. If you like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe. I put a lot of effort into this one this time. Preferably in the fact that this actually took like a little over 3 to 4 months of just planning and then just ordering the parts and waiting for a lot of them. So yeah. But if you did like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget to share the videos in some cases, in some capacity. Let me know what your favorite part of the video was, and bye. But if you did like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget to share the videos in some cases, in some capacity. Let me know what your favorite part of the video was, and bye.